Hey guys, it's Carl again today, and I wanted to try and answer a big question that some newer players may have once they feel they want to take their Team Fortress 2 experience to the next level. The question in hand being, how can I get into or play competitive Team Fortress 2? This is a question that gets thrown around a lot, but I don't believe has been firmly answered yet. When you look up how to get into competitive Team Fortress 2, you're greeted by slightly outdated tutorials that don't seem to fit you in the best case scenario. They give you a vague idea on how to do it, but they don't properly introduce you to it. So, I made this video as an answer to that, to try and get people more introduced to competitive Team Fortress 2. I'll start by breaking this video into segments, as there are many things to consider. Firstly, we might want to take a look at your physical setup, ensuring that you have all the necessities to get into competitive Team Fortress 2. Then we can go over your in-game settings to maximize your performance. Next, we'll choose the version of competitive that you want to play in, as well as the class that you would like to main. After that, we can look at where to sharpen up your skills, and getting into a league and becoming part of an official team so that you can finally be an official Team Fortress 2 competitive player. Your physical play space is an important part for getting into competitive Team Fortress 2. Take a look at your desk space. Ideally, you should be using a mouse capable of a high DPI range, though any mouse will do. Just make sure you're not using a laptop trackpad. Personally, I use the Logitech G502. Next, any keyboard will really do the trick, but mechanical keyboards offer unrivaled and reliable tactile feedback. I'd recommend any mechanical keyboard that uses Cherry MX switches, though you should look up more in-depth guides for keyboards to find which one best fits you. Personally, I use the Corsair K65 with Cherry MX red switches. Next is the audio department. A microphone is needed, no question about that, but any mic will do, so long as your team can understand you. And pair it with a pair of headphones, and it'll do nicely. Though, you could even use earbuds if it came down to it. Lastly is your monitor. Any can do, even lower resolution panels. Personally, I use a 1920 by 1080p monitor, but it's completely up to personal preference. Also, higher refresh rates are highly recommended, though 6 Hz will do at the base level. Overall, you probably have the minimum setup required to play competitive Team Fortress 2. Now, there are a few last things that are helpful to have, but aren't an absolute necessity. Firstly, a powerful computer is a great idea for any competitive game. You should be using a dedicated graphics card, and one capable of putting out a high number of frames. I have a GTX 950, but nowadays, the GTX 1050 Ti is a great budget choice that is very powerful for the price. Also, you don't need an external power supply to power it. You can just plug it right into the motherboard and it will draw it right from it like nothing. Great for upgrading any computer into a nice gaming rig. Next would be your internet connection. Wireless does work, but for the best experience, you want to make sure you're using a physical connection. Any interruption is not going to be very fun. Lastly, a nice mouse pad is a little extra, and personally, I would just recommend the SteelSeries QCK gaming mouse pad. It's only $12, and if you get it with a few other things, you get free shipping. That's pretty nice. Unlike most first-person shooters, Team Fortress 2 has an extremely flexible setting system that can be changed via in-game console commands to set it up just the way that one may desire. Configuration files, or configs for short, are files that automatically input these commands every time so that you won't have to manually enter each command one by one. There are many config files available that you can find by looking around, but I'll be linking 2 configs in the description. One, known as Chris's Max Frames, is a config that makes your game look like it's straight out of the Nintendo 64. I've also put my own config in the link, which is just a modified version of Chris's Max Frames, but with changes that tailor to the way that I like it. To install a config, simply download the files linked in the description, and choose the one that you personally like. After that, open up your Team Fortress 2 directory by going into Steam, right-clicking Team Fortress 2, then clicking on Properties. Move to the Local Files tab and click on Browse Local Files. Once you've done that, you can go into the TF folder, then the CFG folder. If you want to keep your current config, make sure that you move it to a safe location where you can later recover it. After that, drag in your new config file and name it AutoEXEC in all lowercase with no space. This ensures that every time your game boots, it's automatically executed and your settings will be loaded in. If you'd rather not have the config loaded every time that you enter the game, simply name it whatever you would wish, and then once in game, type in EXEC space whatever you named your config. Again, I'd recommend tinkering with the config file until you find the one that you personally like, but if you just want to stay with the default config that are linked below, that's perfectly acceptable too. Now that your game and desk is set up to play more properly, we can decide on exactly what kind of competitive Team Fortress 2 that you want to play. Believe it or not, there is more than one kind of competitive Team Fortress 2. The two main versions are 6v6 and Highlander, or 9v9. The prime difference in these two besides player number is what kind of classes that are in play. In Highlander, every class is played with one on each team, creating a 9v9. In 6s, there are 2 scouts, 2 soldiers, a demo, and a medic, creating a 6v6. Because of the lower count number and the generalists in play, 6s is viewed as the better alternative, but it is up to your personal preference. Obviously, if you're a pyro main, 6s may not be as accepting, and Highlander might be a better choice for you. Because honestly, to play in 6s, you have to be good at scout, soldier, demo, or medic. Off classes are rarely run, so you have to be good at a generalist class if you want to play. If you don't want to play one of those classes, then Highlander is accepting to any class. But just remember, if you want to play 6s, try to stick to it, and if you want to play Highlander, try to stick to it. The same classes will not have the same role across different game modes, and if you switch between them, you may dilute your knowledge of how to play one class a certain way. This section has no defined answer, as it's up to your personal preference on exactly what kind of competitive Team Fortress 2 you want to play. Of course, I'd highly recommend that you look up more effective ways to play how you want to. If you want to play Scout and Highlander, learn how to play that role well, and if you want to play Med in 6s, learn the best way to play Medic that you can. It's completely up to you, and this is something that can't be earned just by constantly playing pugs. You have to put the effort in exactly what kind of competitive Team Fortress 2 style you want to play. Now, you selected the type of competitive and the exact class that you want to play, but where do you go to improve your skills and get better? Currently, there are 2 forms of practice. For Highlander, you only have one option though, that being TF2 Center and its lobby system. Now, TF2 Center is not perfect by any means, but it is a way to get better and play in the format that you want to. Just remember to have some decency and make it an enjoyable place for other players as well. While TF2 Center does support 6s lobbies, there are 2 alternatives that are considerably better. The first is Face It, and the next is PugChamp. As the title of the latter suggests, these sites are for pickup games, or pugs for short. They are more well suited to getting players comfortable with their desired roles in 6s in a realistic scenario. Not to mention, they're fairly easy to get started on. I'll leave it to Bandy to explain how you can sign up with Face It, as his guide perfectly walks you through how to set it up. Lastly, we have na.pug.champ.gg. Catchy name. This site has typically been used by higher players, so it may be difficult to get picked, as the site functions on a captain system, where 2 captains queue up and select players until they have a small 6s team created. They then vote for a map and play. The issue with this site is that unless you made a name for yourself and you're willing to stack up against the much higher ranked players, you probably won't have too great of a time. So I'd recommend that you play this once you're very familiar with 6s as a whole and you're thinking that you're ready to potentially go up against some higher level foes. Honestly, once you get past that, I'd say that it's the best way to really play pugs and competitive as a whole for practicing. But I understand for Highlander players and lower level 6s players that it may not be the best solution. Of course, there is one last thing to go over, and that is MGE. MGE is a mod designed to help players aim and perform better by pitting you against one other player in a deathmatch arena. The first person to 20 points wins. Many people use these servers to improve their aim and movement. It's a fantastic way to sharpen up your skills and become better overall. I'd highly recommend that you practice a bit here and there, and the small amount of time can really go a long way, especially in competitive where aim means everything right next to communication. Just one last thing, you may want to play on a server that's near you, as even a small amount of ping can put you at a disadvantage. Of course, playing competitive is no fun without getting into a league and being part of a team. Usually, you should try to find a league that is local to your region. If you live in North America, UGC is a common choice for beginners and mid-tier players who want to get involved with the competitive scene. ETF2L, or European Team Fortress 2 League, is, as its name would suggest, a European Team Fortress 2 competitive solution. There are also things such as Oz Fortress for Australia, among others. Of course, the best unrivaled league is ESEA, a pay-to-play competitive solution that offers competitive solutions to almost anywhere in the world. However, mostly the best of the best play in ESEA due to its pay-to-play nature, so you may want to wait before trying to get involved with them, as you have to pay for it on top of all of it. To find a team, head over to the forums of your local competitive site of choice and navigate to the division that you best think would fit you. You may want to start off low and work your way up as you progress. You should make a posting that entails what you can offer, how many hours you've played, and the exact class that you want to play. And of course, any competitive experience if you played in a league before. Next, you can go over into the section where teams are looking for players and look through some of the forum postings there. When looking for a team, you should ask yourself questions about them, such as, is the leader experienced enough to make the right calls and set everything up? Also, how are my teammates? Do they perform as well as I can or better? These questions are important, and to give you an example, these are questions that I didn't ask myself when I first joined Sixes. I was offered a spot on a team which I thought was good at first, until I soon realized that the team was made up of very young, inexperienced players who got rolled by many teams, both experienced and inexperienced. I quickly jumped ship and found a team that answered the questions above, and overall I've had a blast a part of this new team, even if I don't play a whole lot. If you have a good leader, they will provide communication, as well as scheduling scrims with other teams. If you follow the steps listed above, you should be on your way to becoming a better TF2 player who is now more integrated into competitive Team Fortress 2. Keep in mind that when you start out, things can be a bit slow and hard to transition into. When I first got into competitive TF2 some 2.5 years ago, it was tough. Not to mention my voice triggered thoughts of an adolescent child at a keyboard who really wanted to be good at video games. But don't be afraid, just get in there. Some people may be negative, and there will always be negativity in anything competitive, so just do your best, and improve as much as you can. I promise that competitive Team Fortress 2 is a rewarding experience. You'll have some minor hardships, but if you get past that, it's absolutely amazing. I hope you do well on your endeavor for competitive Team Fortress 2, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.